Hello, Tom Levecki here with kind of a last minute, very special live with none other than Giovanni Rocco, author of Giovanni's Ring, Inside the Real Sopranos. Giovanni Rocco, we have our drinks in hand. Salute, brother.
Salute, brother. Salute.
We have our drinks in hand, and we're going to celebrate. We're going to do some cool stuff. Before we jump in, I know most people know who you are, but we are A Big G, Tommy Brajol, Joey M. Hello, everybody. Now, we are also broadcasting over Mobsters Inc. It's a new channel that I acquired since we spoke, Giovanni. So not everybody will know who you are. Why don't you give a quick refresher, if you don't mind, as I light up my cigar?
All right. Congratulations on the new platform. I wish nothing but the best.
Thank you.
I am a retired New Jersey police officer / FBI undercover. Most of my career I spent DEA, deep cover work for the FBI and government agencies. And my last case that I worked was infiltrating the American Mafia, which was based out of New Jersey, the DeCavalcante Crime Family, which led me into several other of the major families. And that ultimately came to an end when they asked me to clip a couple of guys. And of course, that didn't happen. But what it did kill was my career. So my career ended. I think that's the only thing that got killed in the case. And my career ended, and my life there as a law enforcement officer, that ended as well. And my wife and my family were moved to a location undisclosed for safety reasons, where I sit.
Right. We did not get into this as much. So what I'll do is if you're watching this on a record, I'll put a link to our first interview, who's actually on twice, but his first interview. But I want to talk about a few things we haven't discussed. Okay, now we sit there and we see the photos, we see the press release, we see how Charlie Stango, goes away. We see all these great things, right? But then for you, the music stopped, right? So
Correct.
give us after the case wraps up. We're going to get back into the good stuff. Don't worry, we'll go through the book.
Right.
We have some mutual people that we know that unfortunately he chatted with, but nevertheless, what happens when the music stopped in this particular case for Giovanni Rocco?
Well, that's a lot of people don't understand, Tom. Undercover work is different, right? You do an investigation, and if you're an investigator, a detective, or an agent, you do an investigation. Yeah, you have a great outcome. You go to trial, and then you win, right? No harm, no foul. Correct. But when you're a deep cover and you do these covert ops, you get close to subjects on long-term undercovers, deep covers. Yeah. I'm not talking about roll-ups on street corners or just a couple of weeks here and there. Deep covers a whole different beast. And for me, it was. I've done this numerous times, 25 years of doing this,
Wow.
So the deep cover cases, I was able to always unplug, and it was never an issue. But this one was right in my backyard, being that I'm from that neighborhood. I'm from Jersey, and it's hard, right? Going anywhere else and trying to acclimate is a difficult thing. So because of the close proximity to where I grew up, where my family was and how I lived, this case was different. This case, they decided, they did a threat assessment, the Bureau did, and that was it. So it really wasn't up to me at that point. So yeah, it was a whole new arena for me to live in. I never had to do that before. I had threats on me in the past with different organizations I worked and stuff, but nothing that I ever had to include my family or endure the pain that I did after this case was over. Most guys that were arrested, they were put on a bracelet. And as I was, you sit there in your backyard, and that's how I was for 9 months, sitting around, couldn't leave my house, couldn't go anywhere, couldn't go to work. And then I waited, so wait a minute, who's the bad guy here? You start to get it. You start to get in your own head, and that starts to eat you up from inside. So, I served my sentence as well over the last few years. So it's been a rough one.
Well, all right. So I believe you covered in the book, and you and I chatted a little bit and on and off. So forgive me if it was on air, off air, whatever it was. But so you, your wife was in law enforcement.
Yeah.
And great woman, and she went through a lot. She, just like somebody serves in the military, when you go on deep cover like Giovanni did, they serve as well, right? And let alone she has her normal responsibilities. But what's crazy about your story is it took you to Vegas, and then it kind of took you back here, and now it wrapped up. But where you were, she's shopping and like ran into one of your subjects' wives, right? Or something along those lines. If you don't mind, go a little bit about that, because that was crazy in my mind.
Yeah, that's Murphy's Law, right? If it can happen, it's going to happen to us. You know,
Correct.
there were a couple of incidents in the case as it unfolded. The first being where the soccer game that you're talking about, I write about it in the book. I was at a soccer game with my family, and it just so happened, you know, I bumped into a couple of guys, and that was stressful, you know. And again, my wife was prepared for this, but
Yeah.
never to this level. She herself had worked undercover. Take it or leave it. She was smart. She left
Yeah.
it, you know.
Yeah,
But she warned me. She warned me, and I talk about that too. She warned me in the beginning. This is going to be the demise of us. This is going to really, you know. She knew what the federal government would do to me. You know, so she had her own opinions, right? They're going to use you up. They're going to throw you in the garbage like they do everybody else. Like, what are you doing? But again, this was an addiction for me. You know, it wasn't my goal to infiltrate the mafia. That's not what I meant to do. This was just, honest to God, it was just another case for me. You know, it just unraveled like that. So, yeah, and there were a couple. There was a day when I talked about it in the book, Jimmy Smalls. There's a guy I was doing business with, and he called me up one day. And as I'm driving, and I'm on the Goethals Bridge in New Jersey, and he calls me up out of the blue. Gee, you know, we had a very good relationship. And,
I remember this. Keep going. I remember
and
this.
He says, Gee, where are you right now? Right now, where are you? Like, you know, what's the matter? What do you need? Well, where are you right now? Are you on a Goethals Bridge right now? And it just, no, what are you talking about? And here I was, you know, rush hour traffic, mid-span. I'm on the Goethals Bridge, and he's, you know, you got to be on a Goethals Bridge. I swear to God, there's a guy that looks just like you, but he's in a pickup truck. There I was, you know.
That wasn't your undercover vehicle, right?
No, it wasn't. No. So yeah, so that was crazy. You know, I had a baby sleeping in the back seat.
Oh my God.
And you know, here I am on a Goethals Bridge. So you know, what's your instinct, right? As an undercover, you're taught to be kind of like right here with your emotions.
Yeah.
So my first instinct is to, you know, look around and say, where are you?
Yeah.
Nah, I'm not on the bridge. What are you talking? I swear, I got to speed up. And it just, from there, it was just like, I'm telling you, this guy looks just, he's your twin. Let me speed up. I got to get a picture of this guy.
Oh,
you know? And here I am, you know, I'm kind of like ducking without having to switch lanes, but you know, God shined down on me a bunch of different times, you know.
Now your situation is a little different, and I'll give you my opinions as to why, and then you can expound upon it. Is you were with local law enforcement, states something in there, and then federal obviously takes over, right? So you're dealing with a few different agencies. You dabble with the DEA as well. So you had a few different things going on, right? But you made a comment just earlier today in this discussion that your wife and you were like, this may be the end of us. If you don't mind me asking, without throwing anybody to the bus, who has a bad reputation of kind of chewing in and spitting out? Is it the federal, the state, local? Does that happen in general? If you could expand upon that initially, I would love to hear it.
Yeah, it's hard to answer that just in one answer, right? It's
yeah,
they get what they need, right? At every level, local, state, federal, it doesn't matter, right? And when you get the different things I did, I infiltrated biker groups, and you know, years ago when I first started this, when I was in my 20s, I had the big long beard and the hair and the earrings, you know, that whole persona, which I identified with. You know, it's not like I just picked it. That was the other half of my life.
Correct.
So yeah, you know, they use you up for what your purpose is. And then if you become an issue, yeah, you get to be a pain in the ass. You know, what do you, the security teams, or we got to do this, we got to put extra measures in. I didn't sign up for this. You know, these guys are like, look, we're putting bad guys in jail, and we want to move on to the next case. We don't have to worry about this nonsense, you know, about protecting you, or sometimes they'll look at you and you kind of get stuck in that middle, you know, where you have the bad guys are your targets on one side and law enforcement's on the other. And then, you know, you're going into a meeting, whether it be a dinner, and then you got your law enforcement guys saying to you, hey, gee, let's not be too long with your gangster friends tonight, eating your macaroni bowls. And, you know, let's make this quick. I got to sit in the car. I got to, you know, so you feel like, where do I belong? You kind of get lost a little bit, you know.
Correct.
Not that I got lost on which side of the fence I was on, but, you know, it puts a bad taste in your mouth. So at the end of the day, it becomes the cases. And I went through a lot after this case particular was over. And then it was a mentor of mine, somebody I grew very close to. He was another FBI undercover, and he called me up and he was like, look, welcome to the club. There's only a couple of us that did what we did, but you know, yeah, they don't take it personal. They do this to all of us. You know, they use us for what they need us for. And then, you know, and my old man was on the job too. And he warned me, no matter what squad you're on. You could be on a narcotic squad, or sex crimes, or just a detective. You know, don't forget, the minute you're done and the minute you retire, my old man used to tell me, listen, you think you're the cream of the crop now, they'll replace you in a New York second. You know, somebody else, some new up and comer, they'll replace you.
So with your situation, you know, you the smallest kid, you're meant to, you know, do like some controlled buys. It rolled into the Cavacante operation, which was successful. If you don't mind, because I'm very big on the specifics, right? Like, were you paid up until you get a cash bonus on completion? Is it take care, comb your hair? Like, what happens financially, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, I wish it was corporate America and they paid us bonuses on the cases we did, because I did some pretty heavy duty cases. This wasn't. I love to say this was the biggest case I worked, but it wasn't.
Oh wow!
You know, I would love to say, but there was some sexier stuff that I worked in my past that, and again, as an undercover, let's say Tom is the case agent. I had this numerous times with the FBI or whatever agency it was. You're the case agent. I did all the work, right? Yeah. Then when the case was over, the case that we did wound up winning awards, like within the bureau, within the agency. And then you became case agent of the year, right? So wait a minute, you didn't meet any bad guys. All you did was kind of give me my recorders and send me in. So at the end of the day, you got to bring your family to Washington, D.C., to the Hoover building, and your kids and your wife and you got a check, you got a bonus, you know, maybe it's $1,500 or whatever. And then you got a tour, you had lunch with the director. Us, we just went off and did our thing. We started our next case. Wow. So as undercovers, there's no, we don't get bonuses, or I wish it was like that. I'd probably be sitting real pretty right now.
Now, you caught the Cavacantes at a very interesting time, right? Charlie Stengo, to this day, and you and I spoke about this. He was well groomed by JoJo. JoJo, his wife and my mother were cousins. Rest in peace. He was a good guy as far as I was concerned. So Stengo is like old school, the old school. So the fact that you penetrated that, like, wasn't a small feat. Like, you got to, like, you didn't just like walk in and get like some associates or like a newly made guy. You got like arguably one of the most powerful captains in one of the oldest mafia families ever. You know what I mean? Like, did you ever like I guess now it doesn't matter, but like while you were doing it or afterwards, weren't you like, I just did this for you guys? Like, why am I not in Hawaii, or why am I not on my next assignment? Like, did you articulate it, or were you just so disenfranchised you were like, fuck it?
No, at the end of the case, on the other side of the coin was, you got to remember how far in I was, right? Yeah. I wasn't a made guy by any means, but I was kind of doing the acting made guy's job. I had a crew of guys reporting to me because of Charlie and his juice, he was directing that. And again, think about the day when he said to me, I'm going to put my son onto you. Like, what? Like, that was, you'd go home with a tremendous, thank you. You go home with a tremendous amount of stress, thinking, oh my God, I'm just meeting his kid now, and his kid wants to, emulate the old man, and maybe he'll do me because he wants street cred, or who knows what somebody's mind. You don't know what the whole family dynamic is. So, it was crazy. It was crazy, but you're right in the way that Charlie was a well-respected, not just in New Jersey, not just in the five families. He was known from here to Kingdom Come as a loose cannon, as Charlie the Hat, and an old school gangster. And it wasn't the low-hanging fruit guys. It wasn't the Jimmies and those guys that I was worried about. When Charlie brought me in, he was putting me with really, really serious guys his age, 72 years or older, old school guys. Putting me with them, having them vet me out from another Borgata, which means another family. So he didn't have just the decals vetting me out. He had somebody from another Borgata, somebody he trusted his entire life, and that was his Gumbata. But he gave it to him and said, look, vet this guy out for me and look into, look after him, because I can't be there. He was on parole at the time. Yeah. So, look out for him, look after him, see what he's up to, because again, his nephew wasn't a good money maker or earner. So it was like, now all of a sudden, what's this polished guy doing with the polished turd, So kind of the way it was.
Now, one of the things I like, I love many things about the book, but one thing that stood out, and even talking to you, you never over romanticized it. You were kind of very level headed. You kept a law enforcement lens in what you did. So I really like that. a lot, right? However, and I never asked you this before, I don't think. Was ever a time, and now that you're out of the woods, you can speak hopefully a little more freely, that you were sitting across Charlie, sitting across some of the guys at the Ribera Club, sitting like, where you're just like, you know what? It's so much easier just to fucking be on that other side of the table. I know it's not the right thing. I know they're not good guys, but just part of you was just like, envy these guys or respected these guys, or you get what I'm saying, Giovanni? Was ever any part of that?
I do. I was never lulled to sleep, right? For a couple of different reasons.
Yeah.
Early in my career, I had no official training, right? It wasn't up until I really started doing work with the Bureau. In order to deploy around the world, you had to have a certain level of training with them.
Correct.
So you had to go for mental health checkups every so many months. You had to really make sure, because you could be corrupted. And so now I'm a Jersey kid. I'm a Hudson County kid.
Yep.
These aren't the first gangsters I was around. I was around more serious, crazy gangsters. I grew up in a city where Johnny DiGilio lived. I don't know if your
Genovese captain who ended up in the trunk over at the Huckfin Diner, I think. I think the Huckfin Diner in New York.
He wound up in the water. He wound up in the Hackensack.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of
Chicky.
Chicky.
Yeah. He sat in the diner trunk for a long time until he started leaking out.
Imagine real quick. Imagine, like there's this normal side of us that my lawyer's across the street. So like I'll go there for lunch. Imagine I'm going for lunch. I bring my daughter was with me one time. Imagine like being with your daughter and like there's a guy in a trunk. Like anyway.
Yeah. But in my neighborhood, in your neighborhood growing up, that was the norm.
Well, yeah.
For me, it was the old man came home and, he would say to me, so-and-so's going to war, or this guy got clipped, or that guy got clipped.
Yeah.
You're talking about heavy hitters through Hoboken and through Hudson County and all around. So, and I grew up around these guys. I played in their backyard, like legitimately played in Capo's backyards as a kid. So there was no shock and awe for me. I had to actually dumb it down. And I had conversations with Charlie, and he says, listen, I'm going to tell you how this works.
Yeah.
It's not like I can go, I've seen a couple of movies. I know what a skipper is, No, I really, and think about it. I had to really play dumb. Like, so again, I don't understand, like, what's a captain? What does that do? What is this? So he would explain it to me, and you couldn't play too stupid, because then you look like you're just fishing for information, and you look like a rat. So there's this balance of. So when I was around those guys, no, because if I wanted to go that way, I could have went that way as a young kid.
Yeah.
And I talk about that in the book, because again, I was the black sheep of my family. But don't get me wrong, I used to plenty of times come back, and I used to break the chops of the guys that were in my squad, and I used to say to them, you guys are lucky. You're lucky I picked this side, because I would have made a damn good criminal. I would have made a damn good gangster. I would have kept you guys on your toes just to break chops.
Yeah.
But I know, and I guess for me, there was a little bit of affirmation of that, right? If I decided to be a bad guy when I was in my teens, and I decided to stay on that track, I guess this case particularly was an affirmation for me that, I would have made a good criminal. I would have made a good bad guy.
Now, the Cavacantes a bit. So what are the things that, and it's, I still think it's unclear. I do have some contacts. I get asked 2 questions. I get 3 answers. The belief is, and we know, without saying too much, because we're not going to talk about super active guys, but the Cavs are now controlled by a Sicilian administration. That's obviously pretty well known. But are they their own Borgata, or are they under the Gambinos, as far as you know?
That was explained to me in great detail how it works. And I can honestly tell you they're their own Borgata. Okay. But they were always called upon, right? They're a bunch of guys that were always capable guys, old school guys. These guys are the guys that came in, and when you have a guy that you report to every day, and he's bragging about, hey, this guy Tom's a great guy, man, he's talented. He could chop a body up in no time at all.
Correct.
And then you're sitting in your car going, wow, he's a real good guy, solid dude. So you knew what they're capable of, and that's why they're known as the farmers, right? That's what they referred to back in the day, because the other Borgatas, the other families, would farm a lot of work out. Because they weren't afraid to do it. They were old school values. They had the old, they brought that over here, and they had it from jump. And then you had the guys like John Riggy that was in charge, and he had the old school mentality as well. He carried it. He held those guys to a different standard. Along the way, yeah, the decavs are known for the gang that couldn't shoot straight at times, because I guess it's that cowboy mentality, right? From what I see, there's just sometimes no planning. Like some nights we were hurting for money.
Yeah.
And my guys would say to me, listen, let's go do this real quick. No, what are you talking about? Like, what are we doing? Hijackings? Like, what is this, 1972? We got to plan this out. We got cameras. We got this. We got that. Well, yeah, we can hijack a load. But, all this equipment nowadays has electronics and trackers, and, these tractor trailers, they all have equipment on them, and they'll know where we are in 30 minutes, But, yeah, you got to be careful because they're hungry, right? They're young, hungry guys and old, hungry guys. And that's, so you got to be careful. And I've had guys, I left dinner and they said to me, listen, G, I got ski masks and a gun in the trunk. I've been watching this gas station across the street. Christmas is right around the corner. Let's do this. And yeah, the criminal side of my brain is going, yeah, that's desperation. That's what a bad guy does, right? That's what a gangster does.
Yeah.
But you got to go, no, what are you doing? Like, no, everything we do affects Charlie. So just take it easy. I'm working on a couple of things. So-and-so and me got something going. Another boy got it. Let's see what happens with that. And we'll all eat, So you had to find that balance.
That's crazy. Now, the other thing is you were there during an interesting time because, he's in the book. I won't mention his name because I want you to read the book. But one of the guys, because I remember when Riggy came out, and I think this was 2012. At that point, he was an older guy, more of a figurehead. And then I think he died in 15. But allegedly he made, a guy or two that wasn't necessarily honored. So like, from your perspective, because like let's be real, Giovanni. I've spoken to many guys that flipped. I've been around guys. I well read on the subject, but I'm not on the inside. So when you were on the inside and you heard some of those things, what was new to you? Because you were even more probably advanced as a law enforcement guy, training. I'm hoping they give you dossiers, you read the jackets, but then you go into the field. What was one of the things that jumped out at you where you're like, holy shit, wow, this is a surprise to me once you were undercover?
I don't know if anything really jumped out at me. The preparation was, like I said, my preparation was dumbing it down. I couldn't come in. And the one guy in particular that you're talking about, he actually called me out one time, I guess about a year in. And he goes, let me ask you something. You walk like us, you talk like us, you have the same accent. You're right around the same age as me, right? You're about the same age and da-da-da. Yeah. So where have you been? Where do you come from? And you better be able to speak to that. Yeah. That's not just something you just whip up and pull out of your ass. Yeah. Some of it is prepared, but it's like preparing a speech, and you didn't write the speech and now you just get up and read it. And when you do, somebody, people know you didn't write the speech. You can't just pull stuff out of your ass, and you better make sure you're on point. Everything matches up. And I did. I had stories for who I was. Like, where have you been? What do you mean where I've been? I've been a biker my whole life. And I talked about my outlaw biker life, which I was in my early 20s as an undercover. I had the whole look. I had the tattoos and I pulled up my sleeves and I talked. So I had it, I was able to talk about it. And with my background, so many different like criminal enterprises, Eurasian, Asian, you name it. I was part and partial to infiltrating at some point, even much so as the Black Panthers, as the guys sit in front of you, doing business, because everybody likes a gangster from New York and New Jersey. They all buy into it. So, correct. But there was no aha moment. I think, some of the guys that got made nowadays, they do it not on the old street cred of having to clip a guy. That's long gone. It's all scuttle, right? It's all money, right? If I buy my button, I could buy my button. With me, I would have had a button if I would have done this deed. Yeah. And I even challenged a bunch of times, and guys say, it's bullshit. Listen, there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of tapes to back up everything I wrote. Yeah. The Bureau signed off on the book that I wrote. So it's all fact. Would I have loved to get my button? Yeah, I would have loved it, right? I feared it, but I also, but what you're talking about, and Riggy did what he did. He made a guy during a term, a tumultuous time in the family, and nobody wanted to acknowledge the guy as such, and that became a big problem.
Correct.
And those old school values. But long before this case, and I learned doing my homework on the decavs, they had a bunch of guys made like in the 80s, and they almost had them all pulled back because they claimed that the ceremony was not done the right way.
Yeah, they touched on that in the Sopranos.
Yeah.
I remember.
And that really happened, that truly did happen. And they almost had a bunch of guys get shelved and then have to go through the whole process of going and get made again, So yeah, that something like that was, but the way that the Borgatas worked together, that was a big eye opener for me. The different families and how they survive. And Charlie would do that to me, get in the car, go to New York, go see this guy from this Borgata tomorrow. I don't even know who the guy's last name is, like he's just sending me to see a guy. And then other times, Charlie's Charlie, he is a gangster's gang. He told me, get in the car, drive to this guy's social club with another Borgata. And Charlie doubted him about something. Yeah. And he said, walk in there and I want you to bring a message. By that point, I was his messenger. And he says, walk in there and tell him Charlie loves you, but go F your mother.
So, all right. This is okay. Hit your nuts button. But so I'm a little paranoid as a business person. I call it productive paranoia. Sometimes it becomes unproductive. But when I look at, let's call post Donnie Brasco, right? And I spoke to Jack Garcia. I would love to have you both on the same screen.
Yeah, great guy.
I did speak briefly to Pistone's guy. I was trying to get him on. It's a long story. It may still work out. We'll see. But after that, here's how I look at it, right? You probably have about 50 guys that are made with the Cavacantes, right? And on average, you got some big money guys, and then you guys that scramble around. But let's put a low number, right? Let's say on average, a guy produces $500,000 a year in crap. Just in general, just making numbers up, right? You're talking about a $25 million a year organization, essentially. You're talking a pretty big business. So when Giovanni comes along, why don't hey Grind, if you have any questions for our esteemed guest Giovanni Rocco, please give them. She's amazing, Grind. So anyway, this is what I would do, and call me stupid. I would say Giovanni is an associate. He's in line to get his button. Hey Rocco, you're gonna live with Giovanni for 6 months. You're gonna go to him and say, hey, I'm moving in with you. Sorry, buddy. Put a bed next to mine. I don't want to hear I was adopted. I don't want to hear you have no family. I want to go through 2 Christmases. I want to go through 2 Easters. I don't want to hear Dick. You are. I'm moving in with you. I'm going to sell myself to you. Why doesn't the mob do that after post Pistone? You were going home and sleeping next to your wife every night. Why didn't they didn't dig deeper on you and guys like you?
Well, I wasn't going home and sleeping at my house every night.
You were.
No. I tried to get home as much as I could. I tried.
Did you have a flat that you stayed at?
I had a couple of locations. Yeah, I had one out on the West
really
Coast.
Quick. Okay, so really quick. Sorry, Giovanni, because this is important to me. So I stay in your flat with you. I'm Rocco, the guy. Christmas comes. You can't say, well, I don't have anybody. Like you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Why don't they dig? Like I would have private investigators on retainer. I would have FXX FBI guys on retainer. Like, why don't they do that level of diligence?
They did. They do. I mean, since I came on the job in the early 90s, I had PIs working for the mob guys, right? When I first started investigating organized crime in 91, I was bumping into PIs that were in the Jersey area, and they were working directly for the mob. They had their license because that's what they were doing. Biker gangs did it too. But you got to understand, this is a criminal element here. I'm not portraying myself to be a business guy. I'm not a blue collar, or I'm not a white collar guy that's coming in. I had white collar guys around me that made my money, and I had a backstop and a story. But I also had everything. If you ran my credit, I was legit. So
there was a whole, like, let's just say I had a PI.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty buttoned up.
Oh yeah. Yeah. In this particular case, I had a criminal history. I was arrested. I did prison time, and that all came back. And again, you better be able to speak to that, right? If you did prison time, you better know what prison's like. You don't just watch it.
Do you have a bank account?
I had everything. Anything I needed, I had. Anything I needed.
So you can go to the bank on your pseudonym. There's like $5,000 in there, and they put some money in there for you, I assume, right? Or
The way you pay your bills, I pay my bills. The way you bank, the way you sleep, the way you eat, the way your credit, everything I had to do. If my credit card was late, it affected my credit. If my payments were late, it affected my personal credit.
Wait a second. If you were late on your fake credit card, your fake credit got hit?
Dude, you want to get jammed up, make a late payment on a credit card.
You couldn't help me with that one. All right.
God no. Yeah, so they did, and they vetted me out. So when it came time later in the case, much later, and he challenged me on a couple of things, and a couple of guys did. And then when they looked me up and I came clean, I never told them, when I first met people, so this is who I am. I did time here, I did time there. I had guys come to me in Vegas one time. I was around 19 or 25 serious dudes from different Borgatas. And the one guy snaps his fingers and says, I know you. Did I do time with you? You didn't do time with me. Not that I didn't do time. I just said you didn't do time with me. No. Yeah. And he was adamant. He was drunk. He was belligerent. He was really breaking my horns. I know you. I know you. I know you from somewhere. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, maybe it was that 200, guys that we arrested a couple of years before.
You were at a party where you collared somebody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, no, I was at an auto body shop. The Gambino guys. And one guy walked in. I wrote about that. I put that story in the book because it was crazy, right? Murphy's Law is, they said his name. And I was like, oh God, because again, he just looks at it and goes, I remember you, so you never know. Sometimes I look at a guy or, I remember him from arresting him. And you might remember me from arresting you. I mean, it works both ways. But yeah, I mean, I was backstopped, and then he came to me and he was like, when I did come clean much later, and when I decided it was time, and I said, look, I got a history on me. I did prison time with these guys, and I was doing some stuff in Honolulu, and I was bringing some dope in, and I was doing some dope deals with the biker guys that I eventually introduced, and I came up with a scenario for it. And I said, look, you got to understand, there's guys out on the islands that listen, I'm going to be clean with you. I got locked up from some serious charges out on the island. And he said, yeah, I know. What do you mean, you know? He says, yeah, I know the attempted murder and this and that and this and that. And I said, well, how did you, And then all he would do is, I know everything, my boy. I know everything,
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Now I always wonder, right? So again, I'm just pulling numbers out of my ass. I'm not law enforcement. But let's say there's 50 guys out there from administration all the way to soldiers, and then obviously probably about 500-ish associates. How does the government target? Like, they're not going to go after all 50 guys, right? Like,
no.
What is law enforcement strategy to infiltrate? And then it also seems, and I don't want to give away the strategy too much, but also seems like they kind of dig in a little bit, they do their thing, and then they kind of leave. So what's like the initial strategy? What do they do after a bust? I'm always fascinated about how they kind of set that up.
Well, it depends on you. When I was an investigator, it depends. Maybe I'll pick one or two to leave out, right? I won't lock everybody up. Maybe I'll just, I'll leave some guys out there so I could see word on the street, and then I could scap them up later, maybe try to flip them or something like that, make them a confidential informant. But other times it's up to the prosecutor. In this case in particular, like at the end of the day, should have been hundreds of guys that were arrested or whatever. Yeah, but that's not my job. My job is to do my investigation. And again, as a seasoned undercover in this point in my career, I never got into it. And if you were the prosecutor, I never said to you, listen, Tom, you got to prosecute 100 guys. This is the best work I ever did. I didn't care. Listen, I did my job. I made the tapes. The tapes are what they are. I didn't put charges on these guys. These guys came to me. The charges would kind of morph as we went along. Yeah. And then here, you're the prosecutor. Listen to the tapes and decide who you want to. Now, if you're an aggressive prosecutor and you want to make a name for yourself, this case would have been this is a career-making case, this one. But, sometimes you get a veteran prosecutor who's like, yeah, you know what? I'm tired. I don't want to do a whole trial, and I don't want to do 100 guys. So, you can't force them to do it.
Yeah.
So
now, how did marriage from Brian Jr.? Hello again. How did your marriage and family life hold up? He talks about this in the book, but how did your marriage and family life hold up while you were undercover?
It's never good. It's not. Listen, when your wife tells you something's going to happen and you don't listen, it's like everything, every other day in your life, right? They're the smartest ones around us, and we don't listen to them. And it's like, oh, don't worry about it. I got this all under control. And at the end of the day, I told you so is not it wasn't good, and again, the pain that it caused my family is, some guys that go to prison, they roll the dice. When you're committing crimes in the street, you know that there's a chance you're going to go to prison. With me, it was different because, everything in my life changed. I still pay a price to this day. Not to sound like I'm whining. I'm not complaining by any means, but I'm not the first guy that it happened to, and I won't be the last guy. And hopefully the government will learn from mistakes that were made with me, whether it's my mistakes or their mistakes. Well, where else are you going to get a guy to infiltrate these guys, right?
I think you're also kind of like the last of the Mohegans in a way from the law enforcement side. Zach, we're gone. I love Giovanni's book. I'm gonna put a link below, guys. Make sure you get a copy. I mean, this is a sleeper at best. If not, it should not be a sleeper. It should be like out there with Pistone, with everything else. It's just that, again, kind of politics and other stuff get in the way. But he's up there, in my opinion, with Pistone, Jack Garcia, and the like. So I love Giovanni's book. It was great. Any knowledge of wise guys in the Morris County area?
Yeah. I had guys all in every area.
Yeah.
If I heard of a guy, where you are, and I wanted to get to know you, I'd just go to my skipper and say, listen, I got this guy I'm trying to get next to. I heard he's doing some business. I want to look into him. Like, I had that kind of juice by the time it was over. When you have a skipper that says to you, listen to me, wherever you go, make sure you plant the flag first. Yeah. First and foremost, you plant our flag, and then whatever you want to do, you do. And then this guy had so much juice that he says, even if you're wrong, I'll make you right. Don't worry about it. That puts you on a whole nother level.
Yeah.
You're not just a hang around at that point.
Correct.
And then again, he had to go to a sit down over me. There was a sit down with the administration on who I was going to report to. And he came back from that. And I thought he was genuinely mad at me and ticked off about it, because he came back from that dressed up and, the tie off to the side. And he's like, I feel like I just ran a marathon, What happened? You're the problem. Imagine somebody saying, you're the problem. Me, and then they say, like, yeah, okay, this is so yeah. I mean, Morris all over. I mean, I knew guys from all over the place. And he would put me anywhere I needed to be.
Now, you ultimately hit your mark, right? You got the big fish, Stango at the bare minimum, senior captain. I was actually surprised he wasn't in the administration. I think obviously he did a stretch, so that probably jammed him up a little bit there. But my question to you, though, is what did they do right? Meaning, you're on your investigation, you're pretty good at what you do. Was ever some snags you hit or some obstacles where, like, wow, these guys are good. Like, I couldn't get them on tape, or I couldn't, get them to talk, or like was it like, did the mob evolve a little bit so it was a little harder for you, or did they make any big mistakes? And if so, what? Like, I want to get a feel for how easy or how hard it was for you.
So the mental game, right? This is the art of deception.
Yeah.
You're not a liar. You're not an actor. You don't get second takes on this. This is the art of, this is truly, truly the art of deception. So if I want a question answered and I got to find out somebody's last name, and, I got Joey Bag of Donuts, right? And I don't know who Joey Bag of Donuts is, and I don't know who he's with. I can't just say, hey, that guy Joey, who's he with? I might not get it. Oh, don't worry about him. That means shut up, right? Mm-hmm. And you better know. But an unseasoned detective might just keep, yeah, but who was he? What family is he with? What Bogart is he with? Anybody? He's a made guy. What's his status? You're asking all these, you're peppering me with questions. Sometimes it's better to have emotional intelligence and let it roll and come back and visit it a later date. And that's what I used to do, right? So, yeah, but there were a lot of moments. There were moments when I kind of let my guard down myself. Stupid things I did. One time I had my FBI ID on me. I never told anybody that, and it fell under my seat, and I was done, and I don't know how I found it days later. And I was like, holy shit, how long has this been under here? And it's, federal government FBI ID. And, I didn't know how long it was under my seat, of my driver's seat of my car. Other times I would let my guard down and I would get comfortable, because again, when guys are reporting to you, that kind of goes to your head a little bit.
Yeah.
It does, because guys are like, But again, there was a great time when I had dinner with all my guys, and they were all talking about Rico, Rico, Rico. I watch this Rico, man. This Rico will get us all, you know, it'll jam us all up. And of course, sitting here, we know they're talking about the Rico, the federal charge, racketeering, and influence, right?
Yeah.
And yes, I knew what they were talking about. But again, as a season of the cover, I'm sitting there going, and I got to, now I'm acting a little bit, and I go, hey, who's this Spanish guy, Rico? And why the F are you all afraid of this guy? And they're all looking at each other, and finally, like, you know, one of the guys, no, gee, it's not a guy, it's a thing. And they broke it down for me. You know, what a great tape that made. You know, I still listen to that sometimes and chuckle because it's like, yeah, they break it all down. They're smart. They know what they're doing.
Wow. Did you ever feel like you were in over your head?
Yeah, every day.
Oh, wow.
Every day. Once I got with Charlie, I knew I was in over my head. And once I knew those times early on when I can make it home to my family, then it was, I'm not making it home. I can't take that chance, you know? And then again, that's where the family aspect of it, you know, you're coming home, and all of a sudden you're not. So you're living in Vegas, you're living in New York, you must be doing something, you know? So you're getting it from both sides. And then, you know, when you try to explain to the FBI agents that are, you know, your handlers, listen, I got to go to Vegas, you know, I'm opening up a strip club, you know, we're buying a strip club, we're opening a strip club, and it was crazy. So yeah, you kind of get caught up in it sometimes.
Yeah, it's what did you how do I phrase this? What did you admire about Charlie Stango? What did you like about him?
Man, he had a business brain. With Charlie, the thing with him is, and he never lulled me to sleep. I always knew what side I was on.
Yeah.
You know, I had some guys, smart mouth guys, you know, in law enforcement, you know, you know, you fell for these guys, you fell in love with these. I didn't fall for anybody, and I didn't let my guard down. I'm raw and I'm open and honest. There's things about Charlie that reminds me subconsciously of family members I have, right?
Yeah.
You know, and I identified with that.
Yeah.
And then when you have a relationship, not just a business and a criminal relationship, but you're building a relationship with somebody and you see the genuine side of them, you know, take 2 bottles of water. You know, it's hot. Why are you staying here? Why are you staying on the strip? You know, you don't have to. I know what you're doing. You want to party, but you're always welcome to stay in my house. You know, my house is your house. And it wasn't like he was just, you know.
Yeah.
And in our culture, culturally,
yeah,
I'm talking culturally now.
Yeah.
You know, that's when it's, you know, it takes a mental toll on you because, yeah, I know what side you're on. And yeah, he would always remind me of what a psycho or sociopath he could be. But there were times when I identified as other people in my life, you know, that I saw things in him and his caring for me and, you know, the relationship that we had, you know, you know, I felt bad at the end of it that, you know, he got locked up, but he put himself in that position. And I think he's a gangster's gangster and knows, you know, some of the greatest lines were after he got pinched. And, you know, he told the young FBI agents, you know, put me in the can, you know, put me back. I'll serve my time. You know, I'm good.
Wow.
You know, and at his age, late in life, you know, that's a gangster's gangster. That's a stand-up dude.
Yeah.
So,
how large was the Cavs Sicilian faction during your time undercover?
I never dove into how large the faction was. I didn't ask questions like that because I thought it would make me look fugazi. I thought it would make me look like I was reaching too much.
Yeah.
But I knew just the way they explained it to me. We still had people over in the old country. We had people in Sicily. This guy came over as a zip years ago, and he stayed. And I met these guys, and so they acknowledged it. So I knew that we still had those contacts. You know, looking back, the DeCavs always had connections.
Yeah.
And as of recent, I'm finding out of all the connections they had to Moscow and the Russian mob.
Oh,
huge ties. I can't wait to talk about that one day.
Next book.
It's crazy. And yeah, they were pipelined in around the globe.
So where did the mob go wrong? And I'm going to give my quick opinion. So I look at like the mob in 2 ways, right? I just interviewed Anna Sergio. I'll send you the link. She's an Indra expert on the Calabrian side of things, Italy side of things. So they like persevered because they got into drugs. The U.S. mob didn't get into drugs. I'm not talking about the morality of it, but I'm saying they didn't get involved with drugs at a large scale. But there's few things the Cavs and the American mob mistakes they made. I hate how they pin it on Gotti. was it Gotti didn't single-handedly take down the mob? In your opinion, being on the inside, what are some of the mistakes the mob made, the Cavs or broader, in your opinion, that was really kind of their undoing?
I guess some of it was the media, like you just said. It's not all John Gotti's fault, right?
Yeah.
But long before John Gotti came along, the original Teflon Don was John DiGilio from Hudson County,
Yep.
because that's what caused him ultimately, I think, to get clipped.
Yeah.
You know, his own people, his own crew, and the word came down from, I think it was the Chin back then, and when they killed him, it was because he was in the news and he was on trial, and the Star Ledger was covering him like crazy.
Correct.
And then what happened was he was faking the heart thing, and he was, you know, and then they were giving him fame and fortune in the papers, and he kind of loved it, you know. So he thought he was bigger than life itself, and that kind of was his demise. Kind of like Gotti later on.
Yeah.
But it was the sexiness. I think the demise was after Gotti got pinched. This is all my opinion.
Yeah.
I think that the glorifying of it, the reality TV shows and the up and coming young kids and the wannabes who never will be's, you know, and the hangarounds and the guys, you know, it's now just sexy for TV kind of thing, and that was their demise. Omerta is a thing of the past, you know. I don't know, you know, and I live and breathe by Omerta, you know, because as a cop, as a guy that grew up in New Jersey, and you tell me your secrets, I'll keep your secrets till I'm dead. You know, that's how we culturally, how we're raised. But they lost that kind of, you know, a little bit.
Yeah.
And then it was again right around the time frame of Gotti. All these things happened. As an investigator, I know when the mob started using the Albanians to do their home invasions and their collections and do their dirty work, kind of like everybody was using the decals back in the day.
Yeah.
And then the Albanians kind of got smart, and they were like, well, what are we doing? Like,
what do we need?
Why don't you just knock them over and take it? What are we working for them? Let's just go do it ourselves. And at that time, the Gotti empire collapsed, and then everything was so disorganized that these guys, you know, other cultures came in, and Russians and you know, other organizations came in and started feeding on the bottom, you know, picked it apart.
Carmine has a good question, and before you answer about the Genovese, you grew up in Bayonne, Genovese stronghold. In my opinion, out of the 5 families, and especially in New Jersey, the Genovese is still very strong to this day. Give us a little bit about your background and what you think about the Genovese even then and a little bit now. Oh, I think you're frozen.
My day, you know, everybody puts the Gambinos up front. I mean, it's not for me to say, but Genovese was always, you know, the strongest, I think, you know, in my opinion. And again, coming up, working as a young investigator when I went into Vice, when Vice was still around, Vice Narcotics and Organized Crime. When we used to do the old tickets, the old the 800 numbers on the gambling tickets and the you know, the sports betting. Genovese ran everything. You know, Gambino was big in New York because of the contracts and everything that Riggy was giving them. You got to remember too, Riggy had all that access to all those, you know, concrete construction, the unions. He had a lot of union control, so therefore that's how, you know, their marriage was made with the Gambinos in New York. But Genovese was always powerful. You know, you look at Lucky Luciano, right? You know, it goes back.
Sorry, the lineage of Luciano to now allegedly Barty Bellomo. There's only like 5 guys that led it over 100 years. They had the continuity. One story I like about Riggy is John Curran has you would appreciate it. It's called This Day in the Mob, and he gives a little bit of like today was whatever it was, and he'll give whatever happened on this day, and he'll do a quick history lesson. The story he told about Riggy was pretty impressive. There was a guy in New Jersey that was a big construction guy, and basically the mob approached them and said, hey, like, you know, let's talk. And Riggy met him in the city, and the FBI got involved. They taped everything. Everything was there. So rather than Riggy like kind of shaking him down, Riggy had it planted where there was other construction guys there, or was it considered his hot spot? A lot of other big construction guys were there, and they would walk over to Mr. Riggy and say, oh, you know Mr. Riggy? Oh, you're going to build in Jersey. You got to work with this guy. You got to work with this guy. You got to work with this guy. And he was not caught on tape doing anything. If anything, he kind of set it up where even like the FBI was like pretty impressed about Riggy. You know what I mean? Like, so I think that that leadership comes into play. This is an area I want to go down a rabbit hole at a later date. But Louis Streaky Gatto and the the Genovese guys out of Patterson. They were another strong crew. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah. So Streaky was one of those things where, again, my last name was Giovanni Gatto.
Yeah.
You know, so Streaky Gatto, I never wanted to be associated with Streaky. So I wondered, right, when I went into this case, because again, I didn't develop a persona. This was a drug deal. Like I showed up on a Sunday night for a drug deal. That's how this case kicked off.
Jeez.
It wasn't like the bureau didn't say, all right, let's do a mafia case, you know?
Yeah.
And what happened was everything just, you know, my last name was Gatto and it lined up. And then I thought same thing, right? Because growing up, and I knew Lou and Streaky Gatto's reputation and good and bad. So I would always wonder, oh boy, are you going to think I'm, you know, connected or associated with him? And it came up a couple of times. But thank God I kind of deflected it. And it was crazy because one of the guys in another Borgata with the Genovese, he, when I met him out in Vegas, he was the guy that had a couple of drinks and was saying, I know you. Where do I know you from? He created, you know, whether it's alcohol influenced or substance. 2 days later, Charlie came to me and he's like, so I didn't know that so-and-so did time with your old man. What are you talking about?
Ooh.
And he's like, yeah, your old man. He was in prison with so-and-so. What are you talking? I don't even know. Like, I don't, you know, it's one of these things where I don't even have a relationship with my old man. What are you talking about, Charlie? You know, and this guy created this whole thing because again, I think he wanted to get the impression that he knew me or he had something on me or he was made close to me and Charlie because we were going to start making things happen here and over in the West Coast. So, it was crazy. So, you know, no relation to Streaky, just the conversations and the investigations I did as a young detective. I knew a lot about Streaky back in the day.
Now, kind of a crazy question. If I was a mob boss and you're now a civilian and that is hypothetical, of course, and I retained you and I said, listen, like, I need this to last another 100 years. What do these guys have to do to make that happen?
I don't want to give away my advice to them. I got a lot of tips for these guys in less than 200 years. How about this?
Buy some books. Just kidding.
How about this? How about you go back underground?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, you don't need to be in the limelight and the spotlight. And again, I'm not giving it advice. They're going to get you either way. Right. You know, because everybody goes, oh, the mob, you know, everybody started ratting in the 90s. That's BS. Yeah. Like, I think you and I talked about it. One of the first undercovers there ever was that infiltrated the mafia in New York and New Jersey was an NYPD detective back in the 1930s, I think.
Yep.
And eventually he went to the motherland and he infiltrated them over there.
Yeah.
So, you know, guys have been flipping and guys have been ratting and guys have been informants and giving up information for decades and decades and decades. Yeah. So, you know, that's not the thing that was the mob's demise, right? Just go back to what your roots were. Omerta, stay out of certain crimes. You know, I think that's what did them in. But, you know, when you're criminals and you just want to make money, you know, that's you gotta, I guess you have to be in the spotlight, right?
Yeah.
You know, if you want to make fast money.
That's true. What's understood does not have to be discussed. I agree.
Right.
What relationship, if any, did the Cavs have with Lucchese's faction in Jersey? Well, you have a good story in Vegas, and Philly Newark crew owned by Joe Scoops during the time of Undercover.
Yeah. So Scoops Licata was another one. Yeah. I was doing surveillance on Scoops.
Yeah.
And you know, there was a bunch of guys, and I wasn't doing undercover work at the time, and it was just I was able to get close to them. And Scoops was one of these guys where he was with
he was a Philly
Nicky Jr. Nicky Jr. and a couple of guys in Atlantic City. And here I was getting caught on tape holding the door for these guys. It looked like I was part of the crew, but I wasn't. I was just an investigator, like going in. You know, again, it's that way I could go in and, you know, go into a restaurant and see who's in there without looking like an FBI agent. So, you know, without your 511s and your polo shirts on. You know?
Well, that's what's crazy. What people have to understand. Newark, even more so than Elizabeth, you had the 5 families. Not as much a Cav, but you also had Philly, and Scoops was a legend. My a family member of mine knew him pretty well. He had a long run, Scoops. No,
he did. Well, he's a very, very smart businessman, right?
Yeah.
You know, Scoops was very smart. At least that's what I knew when I was in one of the bigger investigations as an investigator on side. And he very, very impressive as far as his business brain goes and stuff. But again, greed kicks in, and you just get too hungry, you know.
I don't like to tell a lot of stories. Not that I have many stories, but I have one story where it was from Calabria, the guy, and he's from the small town. I'll tell you afterwards. And he was a man of the year with the small Italian community. They have like their club in Newark and dinner dances, and he was man of the year. And at the time, it was my first marriage. I had 2 young kids with me, my wife at the time, and like we kind of wanted to get out of there. I've been to a million dinner dances, and my mother-in-law, who was at the time super civilian, said to me, "You cannot get up until he speaks." You can so. The reason why I bring that up is in the past, it had kind of support of the community. It was respected. It was intertwined. And I think that's one of the things they screwed up on is now, in my opinion, if you're like a wise guy family, you kind of do your own thing. You're kind of not involved with like your regular relatives, and they're not part of the community. Would you agree with that statement that maybe getting away from the community is what kind of was their downfall as well?
It was, because again, I grew up in that same community, Tom, and I knew, you know, where I come from, if the cops didn't settle it or couldn't settle it, you know, it's not going to go unsettled. If you came in and you did something in our community, man, you better pray. You know, you better pray the cops do get you, because if they don't, whatever's left, you know, there was the balance that you're talking about, right? There was a balance in my neighborhood, especially. You know, we had that old Brooklyn-esque type neighborhood, and you know, it's crazy, but I remember back when the fruit and vegetable truck still came around, you know, and the rides. Do you remember the old Whip It rides, and they on the back of a pickup truck, and you know, like carnival rides? They were all run by, you know, the Joker poker machines, you know, where the cops drank and the firemen drank. There was this balance, right?
Yeah.
And everybody knew and was able to live amongst each other. And again, you know, my father knew where I played in backyards and had sleepovers at Capo's kids or, you know, soldiers' kids' house, and I was best friends with them. And you know, it's just a way of living. So
now, growing up in New Jersey, again, this is growing up. I thought the Campeses were their own family in Newark, right? Obviously, as you grow and you learn, another stronghold, they were part of the Genovese family. But they had another good one. I know I always screw this up. One of them, I knew one of their doctors, and he died eating like a shellfish or something. Not an alligator. He got caught in his throat, and he actually died eating a shellfish. So when I asked his doctor, I'm like, "Is that really how he died?" He's like, "Yeah, he was my patient. I had to go to the hospital, and he died." What do you know about the Campeses? Because I always felt they're not talked about a lot.
No, I think they just fell to the wayside. I mean, like you said, they kind of got absorbed, not fell to the wayside, but the Gambinos always, right? They always claimed them. So there wasn't.
I thought they were Genovese. I think they were West Side. I believe.
But but they never had their own faction.
No,
or
they
family
did not.
No. But again, that stronghold in Newark, right? When you had all of that going on in the Ironbound section or whatever you had going on the port, you know, when you had that much power and juice, it's kind of like the old school guys, John DiGilio and Tino Fumara. You know, that's what made them so powerful.
Yep.
What? Yeah.
Tino was a whale, and then when he got out of jail, I thought it was interesting. He moved to Long Island, then he got sick, he passed. But these guys were power. See, to me, you hit the nail on the head. That's when the mob was still the mob. Like I'm not. You're good at what you do, but to get a Tino, to get these guys are hard to get. You get what I'm saying? So like the fact that you got Charlie, who's kind of at that level. I'm not blowing smoke up your ass, but that's pretty impressive in my opinion. You know?
Yeah, but again, I knew these guys, right? You know, I didn't know them. I worked in restaurants. I worked as a kid, 13, 14 years old, doing dishes and working in kitchens and, you know, the numbers racket. And then next thing you know, the guys, the names that you're dropping, they would come in. The restaurant would close. They'd be outside. They'd be inside. They'd be there. You know, I was around these guys. So yeah, like when I remember when I first started working for the FBI and I would look at the old photos of Tino walking in Newark, or they had a surveillance photo of him. Like I would shake, like, you know, like, wow, you know, Tino, you know, he was a powerhouse. You were around, if you breathed the same air in the same room as him, you knew these guys were just stone cold, you know, and that's kind of you knew it, you know. I watched guys, you know, my mother got me a job working in her friends' kitchens, and here I was 11, 12 o'clock on a school night. And, you know, these guys come in for coffee. And one night there was a guy, I won't tell you his name, his nickname was Moose.
Okay.
And, man, he was you know, my old man feared this guy. at 2 a.m. My old man never feared anybody. He raised me to fear no man. And my old man self-admittedly, this guy was a killer of killers. And Moose one night just filleted a guy's face right in front of me and hooked him and just cut his cheek off, and just the things you saw. And those guys from that era, you'll never see that again. Those guys are just never. They're serious dudes.
Now, I want to do a piece, and I'm not getting a lot of information on it. It was Albert Tiny Manzo. Carmen, I thank you for bringing him up. He was an associate with the Genovese family. He owned that hall in Patterson, owned by the Manzos now. They were involved in Jersey Housewives. Allegedly, the son Tommy. And so interesting enough is Tommy got jammed up, and he's still fighting his case. So I don't want to talk too much about it. But allegedly, he was involved with Lucchese's and beat up the husband of his ex-wife, like twice, allegedly. Dave Canton. And interesting enough is on my regular podcast, New Theory, I interviewed David, like as a regular business podcast. And I don't want to kind of say who I was or what I did till afterwards, but he was such a nice guy. But the Albert Tiny Manzo thing, do you know much about that? Because that's like kind of not as well known.
No, we didn't really talk about him too much. I mean, it's not somebody that came up. I mean, again,
you don't talk about it. Yeah.
You get a lot of hangarounds. That's all I'm going to say. Like, I don't know the guy. I don't know his story. I know, like, what you're just saying, right? From the reality TV shows and stuff. And even that nonsense. I've had friends that were on those things growing up, and it's all nonsense, so unless there was somebody of significance, we wouldn't talk about them. The Lucchese's, I dealt with Lucchese guys. Charlie he had put me with them, and there was a couple of incidents. I had to be around those guys out in Vegas and back here in Jersey, and it was comical, and again, they're a serious bunch of guys. They refer to them as the Lucchese's.
Yeah,
and it's for reasons you can understand. But no, he never came up. That name, Manzo's name, never came up. Never. Yeah.
Interesting. Was taken out of her back. Yeah, supposedly he put his hand in the cookie jar, and there's a lot of stories about that. Yeah, but that's why Jersey's interesting, because you had a strong Lucchese faction. You had, Tumac, I know he flipped, Ricciardi, a lot of those guys, the Pernas, the Tsetas. So the Lucchese's were strong, the Genovese were strong, and the Cavacantes. So, there was a lot going on. I don't know if you want to give too much away, because I want people to buy the book. But can you talk a little bit about the story when you were in Vegas with them, and the Lucchese guys showed up, and they were kind of like referring to you on a lot of stuff. So if you could share a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I mean, think about it, right? So I'm an investigator, and I did a couple of arrests prior to this case. I took a break from undercover work for a little bit, and I was just doing case work. So, and I was on some high-profile cases as an investigator. So some of the names you just mentioned, I worked the case with Marty Tessetta, and those guys putting them in a can. Yeah. So, when they told me, you don't back out, and he's saying, yeah, we got a bunch of guys coming out from the East Coast, and then. Well, who are they? Lucchese, this, that. Every Borgata will be here. And it was dinner one night. We were going out 19 or 25. I forget how many guys there were.
Wow.
And, here's Charlie telling his stories of murder and mayhem. And, even these guys, some of them were bosses. And, they're looking at him with big, bright, wide eyes going, oh, my God, he's talking in public about this stuff. But Charlie doesn't care, and not about cases, but the case they put on him, the case they put on him, the murder case when he was doing time when I met him when he got out. So that was crazy. That was one of these things where I know I needed to slip out a little bit and not go to dinner one night. I was there for a while around these guys, and they didn't pepper me with questions, but I just sat there quiet as a church. I think this is the one you want me to talk about. I sat quiet. And I didn't want to talk too much, because then I didn't want them to say, man, you look familiar and you sound familiar. So I kind of sat off, and I knew my place. See, here I'm with my skipper, and I knew what my role was. My skipper wanted me to talk. He'll tell me to say something, and I understood that from growing up as a kid, right? Like you said, you don't get up out of your chair if somebody's speaking, you just don't check out of a conversation. So I sat there like a good soldier does, or, somebody that looks out for him, and get him another drink, make sure he has what he needs, make sure, and look around. And as I'm sitting there, I kind of didn't say much. And we were having cigars. That's what we did. We had cigars.
I'm having a cigar. That's why I thought of it.
We had cigars. We went across the street, and of course, I asked Charlie, "You want me to step up and buy everybody cigars?" I don't mind. I had a good week.
Yeah.
No, No way. And buy their own fucking cigars, you know? So we're sitting there smoking and joking, and they're sitting there smoking and joking. And I'm just sitting by Charlie, you know, I'm being a good soldier and being a good pit bull. And I wasn't trying to put on a show. And they said they were going to dinner that night. And I decided it's just too much time, too much exposure. And I'm going to check out and I'm going to go do my own thing. So I said to Charlie, look, I'm not feeling good. I'm going to go sleep it off. I had a late night last night. And he went to dinner with them. So the next day he calls me up, come pick me up at my house. So I ran out, I rode out to the house. I got him. And as we're driving along, I said, so how was dinner? Yeah. Oh, everybody missed you last night. It was a good night. Good night. I said, oh, good. Oh my God, you were the talk of the night. Everybody kept talking about you. And I'm like, what? Talking about me? What are you talking about? He says, oh, Jesus. Yeah, they were all shit scared of you. They thought you were a killer. They thought you were going to kill everybody. So what are you talking about? So they just came up with this scenario that just because I was quiet as a church mouse that, he says, oh yeah, they all loved you. They thought you were, a murder and mayhem guy, all because I sat there. So I guess, and again, like an arcade game, all right, I guess my shelf life went up a little bit. So.
Yeah. Now this is a fair question. Did you ever carry any cultural guilt?
Yeah. It's hard not to say, cultural guilt. Yeah. Because again, I lost my cultural, I left a lot behind, Tom. When I checked out, I left everything. Imagine having to tell your kids, and my culture with my kids, and it was everything to me, right? And it's hard not to live it, not to be around the people you used to being around on Sundays or whoever you want to, in events. I had to leave all that. So culturally, man. But I will say, culturally, I knew the mafia does not define the Italian American culture.
Bingo. If there is, George is watching. George is my shorts guy.
Yeah.
Clip that as a shorts, because I have this big thing that people conflate the mob culture with the Italian culture, and they are two separate entities. They're mutually exclusive. They really have nothing to do with each other, in my opinion. They just happen to be Italian. But it's almost like you have to be in the mob to be Italian, but you don't be, you know what I mean?
No.
But you're not part of the culture. They might have dinner like us on Sundays. They may make sauce, whatever they do culturally. But deep down culturally, to me personally, I feel like the mob has nothing to do with the Italian culture, to be honest with you.
No. The mob guys that I was around, not one of them ever said to me, let's come over on Sunday and make 300 jars of sauce.
Yeah.
Let's make some salami next weekend. There was none of that. Correct. Culturally, Italian American culture, that's the Italian that I give my children, that I pass on to my kids, and I want my kids to live. Not the black hand. The black hand has always been a thorn in the Italian culture's side. It's something that they had to live with and sustain. Mussolini, and you go all the way back. They're not what this culture wanted, and not what they came here to this country for.
Correct. Agreed.
So just something culturally that the Italian Americans had to lean on when they came here with nothing off the boats in Jersey City, and when they came here, they had nothing. So they couldn't go to banks and get loans. So, the American culture is where it all came. That's where it really grew. Because when you couldn't go, and again, think about growing up, people couldn't go to a bank and get a loan. So who'd they go to? The Shylock down the street.
Well, exactly. And it did serve a purpose. That was my point. Once you started losing the community and not servicing the community, I think that's where they screwed up. Now, let's get to the Italian culture, Italian American culture, is what I know you bring forward, right? Like you are a family guy. You're a good husband. You're a good father. How, and let me just shoot straight on this. Being away for as long as you did, granted, hopefully you mend fences, but how did it affect your relationship with your children?
Oh, it was tough, right? Because they were young.
Yeah.
And you don't want to tell the kids, you don't really let them into that world and let them know why. Think about it. One day you're just sitting in the backyard lighting your cigar, and then, you're telling your kids, pack a bag, we can't stay here, and that's it. And years go by, and it's like, well, why did you get rid of that house? Why did you, and again, I had my forever home. I had my forever home, and I had everything I ever worked for in that home. I built I built my empire, right? And I was going to raise grandchildren in that house and have it, like we talked about, have my garden in the back and do all my things and have my culture and make memories. So yeah, it's really, and to this day, it still pays a price because some of them don't know, some of them don't understand. So, and it's just, you did this, you made me move. You put us in this place, and yeah. And again, they're little Italian kids. So it's, you get the hand, I know you're just going to tell me, you'll tell me years from now when I'm older. Enough of that nonsense. But
are your kids old enough? If not, when they are old enough, what are you going to say to them about your time undercover? Because they can read the book, obviously, but what do you get?
Yeah, I'm blessed in a way that they could read the book. But again, it's you read that book. Do you want your kids knowing that you bribed your way out of high school? Do you want your kids knowing some of the things you did as a kid and the way
I like that story, by the way.
But again, it's brutally honest, right? I had to be, and I share that part of it in the story because that's who I am. That's who made me who I am today, right? It's not my proudest moments, and some of us don't have proud moments, but it made me who I was. It made me be able to infiltrate the people I was able to. I didn't fake who I was. I understood what it was like to be a bad guy. I hung around with street guys. So that was who I am. Eventually, hopefully they understand. I hope they're forgiving, because they did, they left a lot of their culture behind. And again, that Italian American culture, man. I mean, that was the glue that holds my family together.
Yep.
It's crazy, crazy, crazy. And, it haunts me to this day because sometimes we'll try to find good food someplace and, you'll find a place where, and it's weird, right? But you go to a place where they're singing and there's great culture and it's an Italian restaurant and everybody's, and sometimes, one of the kids will make a comment like, these are our people. What?
Yep.
And then it just, right, stabs you right in the heart, So.
Well, one of the in Tommaso Buscetti's story he was, and I'm not putting you against an informant, just giving you the frame of reference. So he's in Florida with his family, and the guy's singing a Sicilian song, and then he's singing Italiano Vero, the song, and the guy walks over to him, and instead of saying Italiano Vero, he goes Siciliano Vero. The guy recognized Buscetta, and then they had to pack up and go, right?
Yeah.
And what kills me about your story, and you started touching on it earlier, and respectfully, I could hear the pain in your voice. You were the good guy. You did it the right way, but you're like had to hang out at the Valachi suite for a month. You know what I mean? Like for 9 months. Like how does that happen? You get what I'm saying? How like you're not, and I'm not knocking informants. I've interviewed many informants, but they were in the life. They ratted, they made their bed, some admit it, some glorify it. It runs a spectrum, right? We're not here to really talk about that per se, but you were one of the good guys. That's what kills me about your story. And I don't mean to rub salt in the wound, but you get what I'm saying? Like it's like you're one of the good guys. You should be with me at my house right now, enjoying a cigar and having a good time.
Right.
Like, will you be able to go back to normal? And if so, when?
Man, I don't know. There's no normal for me because even the guys I work with have abandoned me. Right. Wow. And not to say they abandoned me. I have like anything. If you're in corporate America, no matter what you do, law enforcement, you always retire. You have all these friends in your job and your arena of what you do for work. But when you retire, you only really leave with a handful of solid people that you're friends with for life. Right. So I have those friends that do check in on me regularly and they'll look out for me. But the other side of the coin is I was the cream of the crop. So they tell me, I'm using their words, right? Yeah. Like I was the best of the best after this case ended and they had me on a beach for, 9 months sitting there with my thumb up my ass. Like, what am I doing? I sat in my backyard like you are. And, springtime came around. I'm like, I'll open the pool up. Now there's, I'm sitting out there with my skimmer waiting for a leaf to fall. The only thing was there's no trees in my yard, So, you start to you become an angry elf, right? And you get pissed off. And then you're like, whatever. Now, next thing you know, you're being whored out. Well, you want to go speak here, you want to go speak there. And then they're sending me all over the place to represent them. Yeah. And then when it came time to do the book, and I won't, not a long story, but the biggest salt in the wound was I was the one after I decided to do the book. It was a healing process for me. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to do the right thing. I'm going to reach out to them and submit the book to the DOJ and the FBI. And then they turned on me. You know, it's a big long story, but
Yeah.
so bad that it was like, you know, we'll get to you when we get to you. And then it was like you started treating me like a piece of garbage, and then to the point where it was just so it turned into a battle, you know, a legal battle. Imagine that. So yeah, it was crazy. So then when the book came out, and the best part was I still got friends inside, you know, inside the agency. And then it was like, you know, I was the biggest thorn in the side because of the book. And then the next day when the book was published or they gave the green light, they put an internal email out saying, you know, we'd like to congratulate this guy and this guy and this guy for their hard work of the new book coming out, Giovanni's Ring. And, you know, now you're using it as a platform to give people awards. It's hysterical, you know? So, but yeah, you know, I can either get stuck on it.
Yeah.
Or just go, you know what? That's your issue, man. That's your issue. I'm using it for the right reasons now. You know, that's all that matters.
So, you know, and I look at it like I'm not the same man I was 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And a lot of my experiences as an Italian American man, father, business person, whatever I am, shapes who I am. Who are you today? I had a direct kinship with you, although I didn't. I spoke to you before I read the book. I felt closer to you after I read the book. Now that I got to know you, but who are you today?
I'm not the person I used to be, right? I'm not the young cop I was. I saw things with different glasses as a young cop.
Yeah.
I'm more mature. I look at my family, you know, I look at my marriage, I look at my responsibility as a man. That the mafia did teach me. There's certain things I say to this. I tell people, they're like, what's something? Well, they taught me how to drink like a gentleman, right?
Yeah.
You know, 1, 2 drinks, I'm done, right? You know, you don't let your guard down, you know, and that's things along the way that I learned from those guys is, you know, so that's what I carry on today. And a little bit of it is still stuck in me, but that Giovanni Gatto character, that wasn't a persona. That guy really exists. He's inside. And I've always had that switch inside of me that, you know, if you rub me the wrong way, you know, I still have that, but I try to find that balance now. And I try to control it. So I'm definitely more emotionally intelligent. I think I could say that. I'm seasoned. You know, and I would hope that people go, well, these guys hold it against you. Well, it's a game of cat and mouse. I think if you're a true gangster, you look at it and go, well, good for you. You know, it's your job. You got me.
Yeah.
You know, you're a bull. You're a cop. You're law enforcement. It's your job to do your job. It's my job to escape it, and I didn't escape it this time. So,
but that's what was crazy when Charlie got pinched. He took it like a man. And wasn't there, and forgive me, there was an opportunity for him to talk to you or you talk to him, and one of you respectfully declined. But even with that, there was still a certain level of respect. Can you walk us through that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I was out there for the arrest. They wanted me out in Vegas in case he decided like that Donnie Brasco moment, I guess, to use that to throw it on. We did it so many times, throw photos or throw, you know, a tape at him, play a tape. But once he found out it was me, man, it was game over. All these guys, it was game over. Nobody went to trial. You know, when you find out it was me, that was the undercover, and for years making tapes against you, you know, you're done. Some of these guys went to their first appearance, you know, and said, just put me inside, Your Honor, and let me start getting credit, you know, towards my time. So, yeah, but that's hurtful too. You know what I mean? These guys trust you. It was the family aspect, right?
Wow.
That's where
You knew his
I got
wife. You spent time with them.
Yeah, the family aspect that you talk about culturally, that kind of jammed me up a little bit because, you know, the family didn't do anything. The kids going to college or the kids, you know, the kids growing up and reconnecting with their family members and now they're back in jail. But yeah, you got to remind yourself, I didn't do that. You did that. You know, you could have been a free man and you chose to do this. So, but it plays a role. Yeah, I mean, it was a crazy time, but I'm trying to read that question.
Well, so now exclusive to Mobsters Inc. and Armchair MBA. Giovanni, are you going to write another book?
I am. I'm thinking about it. There's a couple of different things I'm thinking about writing on. I could tell you the headaches that I went through to get this book reviewed and signed off on. I can tell you it's not going to be a nonfiction, you know, because I want to be able to tell the good stories. I want to be able to tell the good stuff, right? I got a couple of things in the hopper that I'm thinking about doing. You know, some on resiliency and a bit of the trauma and, you know, what I endured after the case. You know, so I'm kicking some things around.
is there because we know they kind of chopped up the book on you, and we'll put that lightly. Is there a story you can share, or a story that didn't make the book, or that you could share that, just for the viewers that happen to be catching us today, an interesting story that didn't make the book, or one that you want to share?
I'm trying to remember if I put it in the book. I don't even remember now. The one story when I had Anthony, Charlie's son, roll up on me. Is that in? I forget if that's in there. When he caught me.
Oh my God! When you were in the car.
That is in there. Yeah.
If you don't mind, well, let's give him a little bit of the book. Let's show a little light, because you have to, guys. I'm like, anybody knows I'm in, I think, over 100 books. I'm gonna put this in the top 5.
Oh, thank you, bro. That means everything. Thank you.
I read them all too.
That's a lot. Oh, that's pretty good. I wish the 100 pages they cut out were still in there. Yeah. So it was pretty far into our time together. Anthony was already reporting to me on a regular basis, and he and I had built a relationship together as brothers. At this point in time, it wasn't Charlie anymore. It wasn't my father. It was Daddy. Daddy said, give him a call. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was that kind of relationship. And so one night I was on my way to the office that they put together for me, and it was Central Jersey, and it was like a construction site.
Yeah.
And I had a nice office there, and my guys were using it, and that's where we would settle up. And I'd do a couple of, dope deals if guys were dropping off dope to me or something. And we also had some girls coming in, some dancers and stuff. It was very, very weird. Yeah. So one night I was
part of the book you were like about to arrange a whole.
It was crazy.
Right,
it was absolute insanity. Sometimes I would go, am I actually working, or am I on a set of The Sopranos? Because it was just, it was that back room yoking and joking. And we had so many laughs together. And then, there were other serious times. But this time in particular, I was on my way there to do a dope deal. I had a guy coming to bring me some product. And as I'm driving there, I pulled over on Route 33 in Central Jersey someplace. And it was in the oldest Gulf station. It's a Gulf gas station. They don't even exist anymore. And I pulled in the gas station, and I pulled in one of the parking lots, and I needed to get all my wires and my devices turned on. And as I'm doing that, again, I was a bit narcissistic at the time. I needed readers and cheaters, but I didn't want these guys to see me as being weak.
Yeah.
So I didn't carry them with me. And I can't get these 2 wires together plugged in and to activate this device. And as I'm trying so damn hard, and I can't see, and I turn the overhead light on, and I pick the wires up, and you can see them dangling. And as I'm doing this, I can't see shit. And as I'm trying to see, my passenger door rips open, and there's Anthony. And he's wearing a black leather coat and a black Yankees hat on backwards, and he rips the door open, and he just screams at the top of his lungs, "Give me all your money."
Yeah, shit.
So, and again, God was shining down.
Do you have your piece?
What's that?
Do you have your piece with you?
No. So, and as I did it, and he yelled it, I took the device and the wires, and I shoved it under my seat.
Yeah.
And as I was shoving it under the seat, he thought I was reaching for my piece. And he goes, no, cuz it's me. So that was late. You have laughs about it, but that was late. So the next day we were up on a wiretap by then. It was the end of the case, and we were recording a lot of conversations about the murder. And then, the murder that was going to be planned. And then I got a conversation. It's Anthony calling his old man the next day, and he's laughing about it. And he says, did G tell you what happened? And he tells me he was reaching for his gun. He was going to shoot me. And, Charlie's response is true gangster. He goes, I should have fucking shot you. So,
wow.
But now, moments like that.
Some of the logistics, we're wrapping up soon. So any questions, drop them below. Giovanni's always generous with his time. Again, I'm going to keep plugging this to the cows come home. Giovanni's Ring. What's the website? Giovanni'sRing.com, I believe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. You can go on there.
Yeah.
Order a signed copy. I usually sign them and forward them to them, and they'll mail them out to you.
So when you were undercover, right, some of the machinations, you carry a piece? Like you carry your, okay, so for example, if you had a gun with you, is it your commission piece from the FBI? Is it the opposite? Do you get one on the street, but you're allowed to carry it? Like, how does that work? Because I always kind of wondered that.
I had a little bit of both.
Okay.
Without giving up tradecraft. But I never wanted to get shot with my own gun. So, it wasn't these guys that it's not the reason. My most effective tool was my mouth and my communication, my de-escalation. And my effective communication, right? That's what I was trained to do.
Yeah.
So I wish a lot of times I had it on me, you know. Some situations, never in this case, I didn't really need it. And I knew some of these guys did carry guns, and I knew it.
Oh, wow.
Because again, the intelligence side of it was, and I knew because, you know, when we got into a little bit of an argument, I could see them fiddling around. They'd stick their hand in their pocket, and you know, you could see, you know, I know, you know, intelligence says he carries a small caliber, and I could see him, you know, messing around with it. Yeah. Other times, you know, guys in my crew, we had guns buried. You know, we had guns buried. They did. They had guns buried, and then we were looking when that whole divide in the family started. We almost went to war.
Wow.
We almost came to blows, and we had a guy who was going to go get a bunch of guns and dig them up, and you know, kept them buried in a hole somewhere. So yeah, I always, if I needed one, I can get it, you know. But again, at that point in this case, if I needed one, I could just ask one of the guys in my crew to go get me one, and he would, or give me his, you know, without question. They would just give me your gun, give me your piece, and they'd give it right over to me.
Interesting question. Is it a blessing to be a family outside of the 5 families? I don't know, maybe, yeah.
No, I don't know. But, you know, that's weird because you hear a lot of this. Oh, the decavs aren't part of the 5 families. Well, listen, it was the commission that set up the 5 families, right?
Right.
But that commission always, I think personally, you know, and what I knew intelligence wise was everybody knew that the decavs were a hair trigger. Yeah. You know, so realistically, the other 5 families, they were like very cautious, especially with Riggy when he got in control. It was, you know, they feared Sam the plumber, right? But then they also feared John the Eagle Riggy. You know, so I don't know if it was a bad thing, but you do have a name to live up to, and you do have a reputation. So if you're not seen as the 5 families, then you might have to go the extra effort to be noticed. You know.
So what if cops grab you while you're undercover with a ghost pistol? Do you get pinched?
So yeah, I would get pinched. You know, I was working a different case while I was in this case. I was working 4 other cases in the beginning of this one, 4 other major cases. And I happened to be with an informant, and I had a load of stolen swag in my Mercedes. And I had some local cops pull me over, and they were vetting me. The guys that I had moved product with, cops.
Yeah.
And one day I was cutting through, and they stopped me, and I kind of like, what are you doing? Like, you know, and this poor informant that was in the car, he's like, gee, we got all this stuff in the trunk. Like, what happens if they go in the trunk?
Yeah.
And we're going to prison. We're going to jail, you know, because I can't let my cover be blown. So there's certain people I can lie to on the street, and then there's certain people I can't in the system. You know, when it gets to a certain point, it's not like I can go to jail. The judge would have to know who I am.
Now, without giving away tradecraft on this one, you're undercover, right? And you're with the Cavs, and I'm guessing you have federal OC squad, probably state OC. My brother-in-law, his father, he's since passed, was chief of police of Elizabeth. They had an OC squad at the time. Probably not as much now. Do they let people know, like, okay, so you're federal at this point, right? Do they let the other branches know, hey, he's there? Or an opposite, no. So if you got brought up in a state sting or a local sting, like what I'm getting at is who knows you're undercover and who does not know, if you're allowed to answer that.
Yeah, and it's not tradecraft. I mean, listen, that's all across the board. It's called deconfliction. So any agency that wants to really start a legitimate investigation, you want to kind of make sure that the New Jersey State Police aren't doing an investigation before, you know, the New York State. You want to really make sure, because you don't want to ever cross paths, right? And it's so embarrassing for 2 undercovers to target each other, and then, you know, you're building a case on another what is an undercover. But that said, they did their job of deconfliction. But then in the case, and it's funny, I was just telling my friend Javier Pena.
That's a Narcos guy.
Narcos name dropping,
Javier, that's some serious shit.
Yeah, we were yucking it up and just comparing stories a couple of weeks back, and you know, he was telling me his, and I was going through, and then I remembered that, you know, we were just telling funny stories, and he kind of asked me a question similar to that, and I got to the point in Vegas when I flew in and I landed at the airport. Metro and all the intelligence agencies out there knew that I landed, because again, I was connected to Charlie. I was connected to organized crime. So you know, because they monitor everything, you know. So I guess it was about late in the case.
Yeah.
And Charlie screaming at me, "Come get me, come pick me up." And I was staying at the Aria or someplace, and I'm waiting for my car at valet. And as I'm waiting, I'm looking at these guys. I said, "Man, these guys look like cops."
These aren't wise. I think
And everywhere I go, they're on me. You
Yeah.
know, they're on me like stink. So I started not messing with them, but testing them. And I go in the bathroom. I went back inside. They followed me inside, and they were on me. You know, and they were local cops, I guess Metro, and I couldn't shake them. So it got to the point where I'm not going to tell Charlie I got heat, but I'm going to have to tell him something. And then finally, I just started messing with these guys, and you know, I go back inside the casino. I play a game for a couple. I was doing the work of a bad guy, you know, trying to wash myself off. And then finally, I just got so frustrated because I got Charlie's calling me up. What the hell? When are you leaving? Jesus Christ! So finally, I confronted these guys, and I was like, "Look, you know," and it wasn't out of being a douche. It was because I needed to get to my skipper, and I was like, "Listen, if you guys are here for me, just ask me where I'm going. I'll give you the address. You know, I'm going out to Henderson. Do you want you want the address?" And this guy, you know, excuse me, I don't know you. You know, like, can I? I said, "It's obvious you guys, you know, you're law enforcement. I don't know who you are, but you're following me." Yeah. And it was just, you know, you got stuck in it, you know. And then I realized, when every time I landed out there, they registered. They still do it to this day, you know, gangsters, and they register it, and they know the minute you land that you're in town and you're in the casinos.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Now, question from Kevin: any activity as far as Somerset, Boundbrook, and a little west of me, New Brunswick area?
Somerset, I had some stuff, not in the towns, nothing going on unless it was a pass through and a spot where we were just meeting up, you know, the old haunts. Union Plaza Diner was a big haunt of ours, right? You know, just stuff like that, you know. Nothing really in Somerset. New Brunswick, there was warehouses and stuff like that. If I got sent to, you know, a couple little joints like that, but nothing's a stronghold.
Are families more or less connected than they were in the past?
Yes. Yeah. I just talked about the deconfliction, right?
Yeah.
You know, with law enforcement, I think nowadays there's more deconfliction with the mob guys because you don't want to step on toes. Because right now it's tough pickings.
Yeah.
Slim pickings and tough pickings. So I think there's more open communication, like, "Hey, what are you doing?" Or, you know, "What do you got going on?" You know, always. It was so weird how I would sit at dinner or I would sit and go see somebody from another Borgata and just talk openly about it. And, you know.
Wow. Did you come across a guy named Anthony Shoes DeMeo?
No, but he came up. Soft Shoes, right? I think they used to call him Soft Shoes. No, the old man. So the night that one of the guys, and I tell the story in the book, where I'm in a body shop in Union, New Jersey, and a guy walks in.
I think I know which one you're talking about too.
Yeah. And he challenged me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the guy that eventually I was supposed to whack out, he was testing me, and he came to the place and he says, "Oh, whose place is this?" You know, and I said, "Oh, it's a friend Anthony, you know, somebody I know, this and that." And he goes, "Oh, it's Soft Shoes, Soft Shoes." No, it's not. You know, not that guy. I said, "I don't even know who that is," but I knew, like, again, the law enforcement side of me knows who Soft Shoes is. You know, so you had to, God forbid, you can't ever slip up. But no, I never came across. I think that you might be referring to Soft Shoes Kid. That's the question might be referring to.
Yeah. Now, kind of a post-life question, book question. You've done a lot of shows. I came across you in the Post. Steady stream on book sales. Did 1 or 2 shows or certain things spike sales? You know, how are the sales going? And relative to, you know, do you do an appearance? It pops up. Has it been a steady, you know, incline? How are book sales?
They're going well, and I only know that, Tom, because, and again, thank you to everybody that's listening, and thank you to you, because without it, you know, I don't know where it would be. The hard copy sold out. So yeah, so I'm so humbled that the fact that they did. The hard copy sold out, and then I get a call out of the blue. And again, I'm not into this as much as I should be with the sales and stuff. I really should.
That's what makes you genuine. Like I talked to you a few times, and you come on the shows, and you've been more than generous. You're a friend at this point. but like I think people like you because there's guys out there that are like, buy my book. I'm
Yeah,
pushing you more than anybody because I know it's real. But so yeah, tell us a little about the success of the book and what you got going on,
yeah, it's going well. My publisher reached out to me a couple of weeks back, or maybe a month ago, and they were like, "Look, it's going so well that they pushed up the date for the audiobook release."
God
And
bless.
they were all excited. And I go, well, is that a good thing? I don't know. I don't know. Is that good? I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my God, yeah, that's tremendous, because somebody came to us, Tantor Media came to us. It's usually you have to sell your book to an audio book
Correct.
place.
Correct.
And Tantor is one of the biggest in the industry,
Yep.
which I didn't know.
Yep.
And they come to me and they're like, oh, Tantor Media went, is that a good thing? So and then the news came out that the soft cover had been released because the hardcover sold out so fast that they couldn't even get them reprinted. So in June, the audio book came out and the soft cover. So they're doing well, knock on wood.
Now the audiobook, did you do the read or they had an actor do it?
They had an actor and he's one of the best guys. I know, but here's the story on that.
Yeah.
Truth be told,
Yeah.
they came to me because, again, when I used to do my speaking engagements for the Bureau, I'd be overseas doing stuff. And I'd have these people come to me and say, oh my God, you have to write a book. You have to do a movie. I love the accent. If it's ever a book, you have to do it. So they did. They offered me. They said, look, if you want, you can do it. And I tried. Now, I wrote the book with my co-author, Doug Schofield, right? But writing the book, I know everything that's in it.
My book, I didn't. I had an actor do it. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. So I submitted a sample to them, and then I was sweating. Here I was sitting in the studio, like, I'm reading my own verbiage and stuff that I wrote. But you truly have to be an actor, and I learned that quick, because you can't the inflection. You can't drop a or a the or a, and us we just fill. We fill the void. You can't do that. And after I listened to this guy, the one who does it for the audiobook, he's tremendous. And I'm honored. I'm truly honored the fact that he's one of the best guys that do it for that company. And they say everybody that listens to audio is a different animal, and I'm learning as I go. Right?
Yeah.
Like people that listen to audio, they want a certain voice.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because the reason why I appreciate this is you sat down essentially and broke bread with murderers, calm, cool, and collected, but you had to read a book and it made you nervous. Like it's just the irony or something like that,
Oh yeah, it's crazy, right? That's where I'm in my element, But that's the addictive side of me. The addictive side was I was addicted to adrenaline. It's not drugs or anything, but my thing was, if you said to me, we got a deal in Juarez, Mexico, sign me up. I'm there. That was my addiction.
Now you, Javier, Pena, respect to him, obviously respect to you. You've chatted with some other undercover, just like a lot of the former mob guys kind of get together. I understand you don't have to say names, but I know you told me privately you got together with a lot of guys that were in your situation. Is your situation when you sat down with them similar to theirs? And you like, or was your situation unique? You know what I mean? Like how was, like, did you kind of all get screwed, or you know what I mean? Like how was the post life kind of kibitzing with guys that did what you did? What was the general sentiment amongst your colleagues that were in the same boat as you?
I don't think they all got screwed. I think when my biggest mentor came to me and he kind of said to me, after I met him, and he was, I looked up to him before I even knew him, and he had called me up and said, listen, don't. And I was holding some like resentment, and I was like, what did I do wrong? Like, did I do something? I don't want the government or all my friends thinking that I did this book and it's about me. I don't want. And he was like, listen, calm down. You've done something. Number one, a lot of people in this industry are jealous of what you've accomplished, right? And then on the other side of the coin is just, listen, relax. I mean, it happens to all of us. Welcome to the family. He really said, welcome to a very select few of us that has happened to. And it just affirms the good work that you did, because that's how it ends sometimes. So,
did you work with FBI George Hanna?
No. But again, I could have. See, that's the thing. When you work deep cover like I did, a lot of people say to me, Tom Levesque from Jersey. I might have met him, or I could have met him if he was another undercover. Like there's undercovers I know as their alternate, personalities or their undercover names, and I never ask them their true names.
Now, without giving too much away, when you're under deep cover, are you made aware of who is an informant and or other undercovers?
Sometimes you are.
Okay.
that's where the deconfliction comes in and bites you in the ass, because sometimes it's happened to my friends that one of my good dear friends who was an undercover, he was infiltrating white supremacists, and
Oh wow.
it was an informant inside the white supremacists meeting. It was like this church thing, the whole big weekend, and and he spent the weekend there and overnight, and it was an informant that actually called up the bureau and said, listen, if you have a guy in here and he's an undercover or he's an informant, they're going to kill him.
Jesus.
They're planning on killing him now. Is it your guy? And they were like, no, not our guy. No. Because they're afraid to give the undercover's identity up. And the guy called back and he's like, look, is it your guy? Because if it is, I'm telling you now, they're getting ready to bring him in the woods and they're going to kill him. They're going to gut him like a fish. It's going to happen like right now. And then finally they mustered up and pulled him out.
Wow.
So sometimes you're told and sometimes you're not.
Were there days you became paranoid as if it was possible they suspected you being law enforcement? You got to read the book, but without giving too much away.
Yeah. Like that, I lived. Eventually, you learn to clean yourself off. That I always did, though, right? Like I always clean myself off, and I'm always aware of myself. Always, that was always for years and decades. I've been that way. A sense of paranoia where I'm always who's around me. I don't know whether that's the criminal side that I lived for so long or just the paranoia side of being. I don't think it's found out. I think, honest to God, I think it's for portraying a bad guy for so long. I lived that lifestyle. Where if I'm driving down a highway, I'll just get off an exit and just find myself, why am I getting off here? Well, I just drove too long. I saw 3 cars behind me. I don't know who they are.
Yeah.
It's real weird.
Now, again, you're selling a lot of books. You're doing a lot of great things. What is your life now? Are you doing, consulting? Are you like all about the book and related stuff? How do you feed your family nowadays, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah. So I used the platform with the book for first responders. I think we talked about it last time. I'm trying to do a lot of awareness for mental health and what these guys and girls are going through. Yeah. So I use it to get in front of them and then kind of share my story and a little bit of what I didn't do along the way as a cop, as a first responder, all the trauma that I had, because again, I started as a street cop. Some of the most horrific stuff I saw was as a uniformed cop. Yeah. So I'm trying to pay it forward, I guess, so I'll do some speaking engagements. I'll do some awareness, some mental health checks and stuff like that for them.
Now in the book and where it ends with the ring, again, I don't want to talk about it too much. I don't want to give it away. Had a certain special meaning to you. How long did it take to kind of reacclimate with your wife, with your children? Are you acclimated yet? Like, walk us through that a little bit, if you don't mind me asking.
I'm acclimated, but there's times when, you dress a certain way, right? That's the cultural.
Yeah.
If you put me in my weekend tux and my warm-up suit and my Adidas warm-up or my Puma warm-up suit, I get the, really, you're going out like that, or I'm wearing my Kango hat. So I got to really dumb it down because, I just don't fit in. Right.
Yeah.
The ring and everything is a cultural thing for me. So the ring I wore, and again, like you said, I talk about it in the book, but not to give it away. I still wear my personal ring, not a government ring. And, it comes culturally. It just comes, right? Like, you feel a certain way when you get dressed up and that comes out. And I got to remind myself sometimes because the Giovanni Gatto may come out a little bit too strong sometimes.
Well, so I think I told you this. If not, I'll tell you now. So we spoke at length that you were generous with your time. And then a lot of my interviews, I don't read the full book. Or I don't focus too much on the book. So I don't want to be prejudiced. But your book, I knocked it out in like 2 days. And I'm not kidding. I read that book and I'm sitting there and I'm like, how do they not know who this guy was? I almost like, I don't know. How do I say this? I kind of go bullshit on it. I'm like, how do they know who this guy is? And then I interviewed you and then I kind of got it in 2 seconds. Because I've interviewed many men in that life. And I almost forget your former law enforcement because like you're that fucking good. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so I don't know. I guess that's how you kind of, got by. And I think that's I don't think that's something learned. You kind of have it in you or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was just me, right? And listen, I'm a douchebag by nature sometimes, and it comes out more sometimes. And like I said, it's still in me. I never the Giovanni Gatto, Gatto was a name.
Yeah.
Gatto was a name that I picked, and the guy inside, and I'm not a stone cold killer, and I'm not, but the way I was raised, and my father, raised me to fear no man, that comes out, like the things that I've seen in my life. There's no aha moment. So, I don't get shocked and awed. So I think I wasn't faking. I wasn't faking a role. Like, if these guys asked me who I was, I said who I was. Listen, I have no desire to be part of your little team and your little club. And that's how I said to them.
Yeah.
Like, I have no desire to be part of what you're doing. Like, I don't aspire to be you. I don't aspire. I'm good with being me. I answer for me alone. And I think that was the sexiness that drew them in, because that's how I normally speak.
Agreed. So we'll be wrapping up soon. You've, again, more than generous with your time as always. Where do you land now? Like, because you talk a little bit about some of being a little disenfranchised. You're now starting a new career, doing some great stuff with mental health. You're doing some great stuff with the community, which I love. Like, where do you land today? Like, I know you kind of touched on it, but I want to really kind of get in your mind today, August 24th, 2022. Are you a little bit more reconciled with the FBI? Do you still have some angst? I kind of want to know where you land now, if you don't mind me asking.
No, where I'm at with the FBI, I support them.
Yeah.
I'm torn on some of the things I see.
Yeah.
I'm, not to get political or anything. It's just, it's not the place that I knew when I started. I could tell you that.
Yeah.
A lot of great men and women, the people that I worked with, they would have laid their life down for me if I needed it, and vice versa. There's still a lot of that. But where I'm at today is, I just try to, things change, right? The game, the rules of engagement change, or the rules on the street change a little bit. You got to be a little more softer and sensitive and loving, and, but I have to change with the times too. It can't be all the way we dealt with things 20, 30 years ago is much different than we're doing today. And again, it's hard for me because when I started doing these engagements for first responders, I didn't like cops because I had the gear in my head not to be a cop.
Yeah.
I can't talk cop. I can't talk, I can't use verbiage. I can't wear clothes.
Yeah.
So for me, it was years of living a bad guy's life that I didn't want to associate as a cop. I didn't go to cop parties. I didn't hang out with cops. That was purposely because I never wanted to screw up.
Yeah.
When you pulled me over, if I got pulled over by a New Jersey state trooper going home on the end of the night, and he pulled me over, it wasn't, hey brother, like cops, hey brother, hey boss, you want my paperwork, boy? Yes, boss. Yes, boss. Because why? Because that's how an inmate talks.
Yeah.
Inmates use the verbs, the verbiage, boss. And they would say to me, so you've been in prison? And then I'd have to remember, oh shit, I'm on a good guy side right now.
Yeah.
So for me, I got very uncomfortable. Like the first time I ever walked into a room with 100 plus cops and I was doing a speaking engagement, I was sweating.
Wow.
I was sweating like I just got out of prison because I wasn't comfortable around it. Now I'm more comfortable being around my own, right? Being around these guys because I re-engaged and identify with them now. But that was hard because a lot of guys, when I meet them, they'll say to me, so, it's obvious you're a gangster of some sort.
Yeah.
It's just that persona.
Now, I asked you this one time, and there's a lot of newer people, so I kind of want to ask it again, and I want to expand upon my first question is, where do you land on mafia informants from your perspective now? Because again, you are a law enforcement guy, but there is a street element to you. What do you think of mafia informants?
The human intelligence side of everything, it doesn't matter. It's mafia, it's terrorism, listen, it's our bread and butter.
Yeah.
Not every case is like this where you're going in on your own merit. A lot of informants and you have it. Listen, people don't want to go to jail, and people judge. Oh, he's a rat. He's a rat. He's a rat. He's a rat. And listen, if the government told you were going, there's a lot of guys I saw that I locked up, and I used to say to them all the time, especially back in the day, the cartels and, the Colombians years ago, it was like, look, you're going to go to court tomorrow and it's going to get real for you. So you better come on to the government side now and join the Team America, right?
Yeah.
And no. But it's a different thing when you're standing in front of a court and they say the United States of America versus John Smith.
Yeah.
That makes you. I've watched grown gangsters, their knees buckle. So unless you're wearing those shoes and you're in that position, don't judge. Like I said, informants have been around for a long time and they're never going to go away. And for law enforcement, it's our bread and butter. You know, sometimes it's our best way in.
Now, you're doing a lot of press, thankfully. But shows like mine, I'll have informants on because I want to get like their story. But then I have a law enforcement guy on like yourself. Are you okay with kind of being part of that, you know, kind of headlines? You know what I mean? Or is it kind of bother you a little bit that somebody may interview you today, but then they're an informant the next day? Does that bother you, or are you kind of okay with that?
No, I think it's well-rounded. I think any show that does that, you want to show, you know, you're biased if you don't show from different angles, right?
Yeah.
So you show from a guy who was a former gangster that had to flip. You know, some of these guys, I was in a room one time when a guy had no choice but to flip, you know, and there was a young agent who made a bad call and made a comment to him. And the guy was proffering, like he's sitting in a room telling us all the crimes he committed before he can, you know, and it's not the thing that he wanted to do. He did it to save his son, you know, and it wasn't a very good thing. He was an older gentleman, and, you know, and this agent turned around, and after we were done in the hallway, he was like, "Wow, it's amazing. What an amazing story you have. All the things you did and the people you killed. You got to write a book one day." And it just set this guy off. I thought he was going to attack this agent, you know? So for some of these guys, it's not even that they're trying to save their own skin. What would you do? You know, I'm not asking you, but what would you do for your kids?
Anything.
You know, if you had to save one of your kids from going to prison for life, or, you know, and you were that catalyst that could stop it. You know, you don't know what these guys and girls are going through. But I think what you're doing is showing, from my perspective as an undercover, from an informant's perspective, from a gangster who was a hard-nosed guy. Yeah. You know, I think it's looking at every angle before you judge.
Now, unless I'm mistaken, you're pretty much the last of the Joe Pistones, right? That are at least public, that wrote a book, that are out there. And let's maybe cut it off around 15, 16. The mob obviously evolved. It's still around. Has the FBI evolved? Like, in terms of, obviously technology got a lot better, but their practices, how they do things, in your opinion, has it evolved, or it's not really where it needs to be to stamp out organized crime and give that final death blow?
They'll never stamp it out. They're never going to stamp it out because it'll get stronger. You know, I have my opinions why it'll get stronger, why it would in the future, why it would become stronger. Again, culturally, why, but they won't ever stamp it out because they're here to stay. You know, they might go underground. You might diminish them a little bit. You know, it didn't make sense after my case was over. They disbanded the organized crime squad, and you scratch your head and go, "What are you talking about? Like, you have so many guys to flip now." And, you know, but it was just, you know, they went on to something else. And, but yeah, you know, there's just, it's organized crime. You look at crypto, you know, they're already in that, like, you know, not just Italian American, but, you know, not just the mafia, every criminal enterprise, they're all into these things. They all learn from each other. And that's the thing, right? So you're not dealing with just the mafia, the Italian mafia. They do business in the way I did, culturally, with other cultures, and they'll do business with Chinese, or they'll do business with Russians, they'll do business with Jewish people. So it's this collective crime enterprise, you know, that feed off each other. That's why they'll never go away.
Since you're here, the recent Bonanno fight at the funeral, were you aware of what happened recently?
No.
So essentially, Vito Grimaldi passed. He was a captain in the Bananas. Allegedly, he might have been shelved. I'm not sure. His son-in-law was Josie Camerano, who was the acting boss at one time. Mikey Knows allegedly is a current boss, and Josie allegedly got shelved. So when Vito Grimaldi died, his father-in-law was Vito Grimaldi. Word went out to him allegedly and said, "Hey, don't show up at the funeral. Just don't show up." Right? He showed up. So allegedly, 3 guys got sent that were made. 1 captain, allegedly, 2 all. They put the alleged stamp on all of it, so I don't have to keep saying it. And sent 3 made guys to basically get him out of there. His brother was a known biker, not a 1% gang, but a biker gang. They lumped up the Italian guys at the funeral. They, in front of the casket, allegedly, again, beat up these guys at the funeral. And everybody's going nuts because, like, the mob doesn't do that. The mob doesn't mess with funerals. The mob doesn't mess with that kind of stuff. And I know I'm kind of giving it to you now for the first time, but what do you think about that? I mean, it just seems like, I don't know, like, it's just, what are you thinking? You know what I mean? So assuming that was true, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I guess it shows, again, it goes back to my analogy with the Albanians.
Yeah.
You know, the mob traditionally and the decavs traditionally used a particular 1% group.
Yeah.
They always did. You know, they did for collections and they did for muscle and they do. So when these guys think, well, you're not who you used to be, you know, next thing you know,
the maid guys got beat up by the bikers.
Yeah. And, you know, you're overstepping your bounds. Well, number one, you got to remember you're dealing with the criminal element, right?
Yeah.
These guys are heavy duty. And again, the other side of my life growing up, I was around a lot of 1%ers, and they're 1% for a reason. You know, they don't follow rules. So, you know, when you're challenged, it's not, everything is not like the scene in Bronx Tale.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like that. So,
well, that's what makes you unique, though. And again, thank you for hanging out. We'll be wrapping up soon, but give me the difference of some of the 1%er guys, the shot callers that you dealt with, and a Charlie Stengel. Give me some of the differences and give me some of where they're like, in your opinion.
I'll just give you my opinion when I came on a job,
Yeah.
when I went to the academy, you know, because I made my decision of what I was going to be. I was going to be an outlaw, not an outlaw gang member, but I was going to be an outlaw criminal. Like, I made my decision young. I defied authority. Everybody told me I wasn't going to live past 25, 24. I'd be dead. So, you know what? I was fast and furious. So the day I decided to take the cop job, I remember being down at the tow yard. Some of the guys were hang about associates, and, you know, a couple of my uncles were there. And then some 1%ers were there. And the 1%er that, you know, the one guy I knew since I was a little kid. He goes, "You really going to do this?" Yeah. Well, you know what this means, right? This is the last drink we ever have together.
Wow.
You know? I don't want it to be that way. Well, this is the way it's going to be. I'm going to the academy in the morning and I start tomorrow. And we sat there and he goes, "All right, well, as long as you know, we ever come up against each other, it's not going to be like this, you know."
Wow.
And they drew that line, and that's an old school biker, right?
Yeah.
So you still have guys like that around that are, you know, serious dudes, and, you know, same thing as a mafia guy. But you have to have that shared responsibility and that shared respect. As a gangster and an underworld member, there's a certain level of respect, right, that you have to have. So at least Charlie taught me that. You could sit down, you know. But again, even if you're wrong, Giovanni, don't worry about it. I'll make you right. That's what he used to tell me. Even if you're wrong, I'll make you right.
I love it. I love it. So you can get the book at giovannisring.com. I'm going to drop the link again. You could purchase the book right there from the site. You can get an autographed copy directly from Giovanni Rocco. The book is Giovanni's Ring, My Life Inside the Real Sopranos. And I'll have you give the parting words before we conclude.
No, I appreciate you having me back. I appreciate everybody listening, and the questions are great. I really do. It's a way for me to go down memory lane. You know, some of this gets me spun up a little bit, but I appreciate doing it with you because you do it in such a class act way.
Thank you.
I wish you nothing but the best with the new platform. I think keeping it relevant and keeping it important. These guys might be in the sand right now, but they'll resurface soon. So you'll have much more to talk about, I think.
And I have a feeling, I have a prediction, because I'm very big on energy, that I think this is just the beginning for you. I think you're going to get to the next chapter for your life. It's going to come to you, good energy, attracts even better energy. And I wish you nothing but the best, Giovanni.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Tom.
It's my pleasure. Everybody, subscribe to Mobsters Inc. if you haven't. The Mobster Inc. folks, check out the Armchair MBA. And Giovanni Rocco, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you. Ciao.